I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education meeting. May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Snoblin?
Here.
Mr. Edson? Here. Mr. Block?
Here.
Mr. Scribner?
Here.
Mr. Burgener?
Here.
Mr. Carey?
Here.
Mrs. Golan?
Here. Thank you. President's report. When we all sat here a month ago, we were just a few hours away from the first and only teacher strike to occur at Lake Forest High School. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the members of our administration who, both here at the central office and at the high school, who in addition to their regular hours and their overtime work anyway, put in many, many more hours long into the evening and early morning hours to keep the school going and to keep us, the board members, going and just to keep the whole process where at its best for the students at the time. So I see a lot of you here tonight, but I want to thank all of you, both high school again and central office people, for your incredible amount of hours and work and support. And also our board members who gave of their time, people who have real lives and real families and real jobs, and instead spent those hours and days and nights here getting the job done. So thank you to all of you as well. Thank you. And that concludes the President's report. I will turn it over to Mr. Simic for the Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Golan. I'd like to echo those same sentiments about our school board and our administrative team. The school board members that you see before you tonight, these have to be the hardest working volunteers ever. And I really believe that the community should be proud of their commitment to the district students and to the financial health of our high school. And just an unbelievable amount of work that was devoted, especially for our school board members that hold down full-time jobs in addition to their community volunteer work. This is very, very difficult volunteer work in negotiating. Also wanted to express my appreciation and draw attention to the fact that our students in the course of some very difficult times behaved in a way that was that speaks very, very highly of them. The fact that we were able to put on school was in large part due to the fact that we could count on our students coming in and giving their best effort. And they lived up to their billing. Mr. Hoffman talks all the time about how we have the best kids anywhere. And the kids came in, and thanks to their parents, the parents sent them in with a message: hey, these guys are trusting you, go in and do your best and make the best of it. And they did. So it's a great privilege to watch the kids in that setting. And again, very often if you listen to the students, you'll learn some things that you wouldn't otherwise. And it's really a great experience to watch that take place, and the student vetting of some ideas, the student throwing out of some of the adults' ideas for the time worked out very, very well. So with that, I'd like to pass off to Mr. Hoffman to introduce some student stuff.
Thanks for the kind words, both of you. And some of our students that were kind of instrumental in helping us get through these times and give us their good advice are here. And so I'd like to introduce Michaeline Tomek, who is our an athletic director and a dean at the high school. And she started last year. We started at the high school with her help, a group called SALT. So take it away, Michaeline.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Yes, so last year we started a new group in athletics called our Student Athlete Leadership Team. And tonight I have two very special people that are going to tell you a little bit about some of the endeavors that our Student Athlete Leadership Team has done and some of the new things that are coming up. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ms. Kylie Carlson and Mr. Peter Grunez. Both of them are seniors at our high school right now.
Hello.
SALT, or Student Athlete Leadership Team, was created last year in efforts to increase school spirit, promote sportsmanship, and give a voice to student athletes. Students who attend the North Suburban Leadership Conference are invited to be a part of SALT. This group of students works as a team to generate spirit that is thoughtful, positive, and fun to be a part of within Lake Forest High School and the community as a whole. Each week, a SALT member sends out an email to the staff and student body detailing the sports events for the week in the hopes of increasing attendance and awareness about various teams. We have received positive feedback from these messages, especially from teachers and staff. Last year, this group also organized a Winter Pep Assembly and Spirit Week in which the students dressed up, played games, and embraced their class and school. All proceeds from the events were donated to charities selected by the students. We are planning another pep rally this winter. Also on our agenda is the idea of using social mediums to spread the word about different sporting events. An additional goal of SALT this year that has taken off recently is Scout Nation, and Peter is going to tell us more about that. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Peter Grunis. I'm a senior at the high school, and I am here to talk a little bit about Scout Nation, which is one of the subsidiary ideas that actually started last year under our program of SALT. And we didn't really have the capacity to start it last year, but this year, thanks to a lot of student motivation and coordinated efforts, we have started Scout Nation, our first fan club here at the high school. And a little bit about Scout Nation. To be a member, anybody can be a member who is a Scout who attends our high school. So we chose to go the inclusive route, and we're really happy with the participation so far. To be a member of SALT, Scout Nation, you sign a pledge, and that pledge involves the promise to promote positive sportsmanship and to promote positive cheering at all the events that Scout Nation sponsors, as well as any of the Scout events. In terms of numbers, 420 kids signed up for Scout Nation so far, so we're really proud of that. That's probably the biggest jump we've ever seen in the club at our high school. 408 have signed the pledge so far, so we're still waiting for a couple, but the absolute majority has signed that pledge and is on board with us. At the homecoming football game, we had 220 kids sign in to Scout Nation, and we had a couple Scout Nation representatives with clipboards, and they signed in. So we were happy with that outcome. At the last home football game, which was against Libertyville, we had 180 kids sign in, so not that big of a drop-off from homecoming. And in turn, we handed out around 175 T-shirts, which is a program that if you are a member of Scout Nation and you attend 2 Scout Nation-sponsored events, you receive a T-shirt, and it's really cool. And a lot of the students love that idea and have taken advantage of that. Our momentum is unbelievable. I want to reiterate, the kids are absolutely in support of this. The entire community has embraced it. After the homecoming football game, I had, my own parents were, what is this? What's Scout Nation? I've never seen this before. And we're just absolutely excited about this. Never before have so many students been so proud to be Scouts. One of my good friends, Owen Williams, I saw him at the last football game. He said, "This is unbelievable. I'm getting chills. I wish we had this." And as you guys see later, you guys will see a little bit of a clip of what Scout Nation is and what it's all about, and you'll understand why he had those feelings. In terms of moving forward, our winter pep rally is moving on as scheduled. It'll be the 2nd year in a row, and it's an absolutely fun venue. Last year, I'm sure Mr. Hoffman can attest to it. It's a ton of fun. We're in the works of creating it now, and we're very excited about that. That concludes my part. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
A little bit later, we'll have an emotional wellness report, which is on the whole emotional wellness initiative and the way it's been brought into the fabric of our school. And part of that will be a little clip from Scout Nation, so stay tuned for that. Back to you, Mr. Simic.
Thank you, Mr. And thank you to the students for proving my earlier point about how our students do us proud at every turn. Mrs. Gold and I were commenting to each other. It is just astonishing how articulate our students are. I don't know very many adults that have a vocabulary like that, and also the poise to speak in public and on camera, no less. I wanted to draw your attention to the International School Board Joint Annual Conference, which will be held in November. on the 16th and the 17th. This is a statewide event that will be taking place this year in Chicago, and it's another opportunity for school board members to work on the weekend. So, thank you.
Attendance days, it says here? No, never mind.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm remiss here. Student attendance days. We have heard back from, not student attendance days, excuse me, whether or not the state board is going to count the the strike days as student attendance days. We received word that they do not plan on counting those, and we're in the process of disputing that at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Simic. Board members, just a reminder, where I see here the joint conference coming up, that you can sign up for the Open Meetings Act training online with IASB, and that has to be completed by all board members before the end of this calendar year. So go online and sign up if you haven't done so. It is exciting. It is very exciting. There's a prize for the person who gets the highest score. We'll figure that one out. Okay, next are our reports, and the first tonight is emotional wellness, and that is Jen Knight and John Maher. Maher, how do you say it? Maher.
Hi, thanks for having Jen and I. We just wanted to give you a small snippet of the progress that emotional wellness has made within our school. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a couple things that we've presented before, but we feel that it's important to show them to you again because they were worked on for quite a long period of time by many people. This is the student vision statement. This was done by our students in the spring of '09. Whoops. Okay. Spring of '09. I'll give you a moment to read the statement. I won't read it to you, but it's something that our students put a lot of work into. Next are the high school core principles. These were developed by teams of parents, staff, and students. These are words that we strive to live by within the high school: acceptance, empathy, integrity, responsibility, and accountability. The definitions underneath each were also developed by these groups over long periods of time.
Okay, this slide is actually a direct repeat of our presentation a year ago in the fall of 2011. And at that time, we talked you through how we felt as a school that we had come through a progression with emotional wellness, that we had reached a point in what we had called an initiative and what we hypothesized or asserted even that was no longer an initiative, that was truly a part of our school fabric at that point. Little did we know that 2011, 2012 would provide ample opportunity to test that assertion. Over the course of that school year, 2011, 2012, we had the entire year, as you well know, spent much of that year looking for new leadership in the form of a new superintendent, and that involved parents, faculty, and community members at large. Second semester, on kind of a less predictable note, we had multiple students' tragedies in the winter and spring of 2012. And as we all know, fall 2012, we had a labor dispute that ultimately led to a strike. Each of these moments were really defining moments for our institution. And so as we came to this report this year, we looked at these moments and we said, if our assertion in fall of 2011 was correct, that emotional wellness had truly become a part of our fabric, who would we be in these moments? And we went back to these three incidents, which are very different, and looked at what we thought kind of encapsulated those moments. In our search for leadership, we thought with emotional wellness, we would have a shared vision of who we were looking for in a leader, and that person would bring and embody the same core values that we ourselves were living. And I think that that person would also understand that while academic achievement is critically valued in this community, we also want healthy, balanced students and adults in our buildings. I think the fact that we were able to find someone and that there was incredible agreement between all three parties, board, community members, family, and I guess the fourth, families and faculty, of who that person is telling, in that we did have a shared vision of who we are. Our student tragedies, in any kind of moment, there's opportunity for a community and a school to fall apart, to look to blame one another, to look to blame at home, to look to blame within, and figure out who's at fault or where did the problem come from. Instead, I would assert, and I think we would assert as a team, that we fell together, that community supported schools, that schools reached out to the community when appropriate for help in approaching this and in helping our students ultimately. Julie's going to speak a little bit about the continuing effort in partnership with our community in this. And finally, our most recent event of note, our strike. I think the common understanding, which none of us were truly aware of where we would go this fall, is that a strike takes decades to rebuild within your faculty and within your school community. That has not been our experience thus far. Has the process been seamless? No, it has not. Are there challenges ahead for us? Yes, there are. But we do feel that we are building with a shared vision of who we want to be, that we are able as a school community to look back to these values and look back to this vision of who our students said they were, and follow that as we move forward as a group. The conversations have been open and have been meaningful, and we are coming together. So we do feel that our assertion has held together. Does that mean that we rest upon our laurels? It does not. So John is going to talk a little bit more about the focused efforts that started in 2011, 2012, and will continue into 2012, 2013 as we move forward.
Our emotional wellness walk. Second year that we've done it with 2 adjustments. One of the adjustment is the name, Enjoy the Journey, which is a website that one of our students started. We took that name on, especially after the Race to Nowhere film, feeling like it was very apropos. The second, in getting some feedback from students, students felt like they wanted more time together on the front lawn after the walk, so we made that happen. So with a concerted effort of parents, staff, and students, and staff did an incredible job with the walk, being there, helping coordinate with the rooms. We were able to, once again, get our second emotional wellness walk off without a hitch, and it went really well. The Student Athlete Leadership Team. This is called the roller coaster. So I guess that's why Owen Williams got a little bit of the chills. They have done an incredible job, SALT has, in bringing together appropriate cheering, appropriate fan behavior, and really just lifting the entire spirits of the stadium, especially during football games, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot of it come the basketball season.
I think that it's important to note that this journey has been supported by a board that has been unwavering in the importance it has placed on the school. We thank you for that. We know that we couldn't have done it without it. We believe our hypothesis has held up, and we are incredibly proud of our work, even more so of the work that we have done along with our students, of whom this is really representative. This is a vision that came from our students that has been supported by our adults, and it's been a journey that we've all taken together. At the same time, we know that we are not finished. It's not the nature of this kind of goal. We still face challenges within both our student and adult populations, and we know we have to face those challenges directly and indeed may have to ask for help along the way. We're looking forward to the journey, though, and we're looking forward to the people with whom we share it. So thank you. I'm going to take this moment to talk about perhaps what may be one of our challenges looking forward, and Maggie Harmson is going to go into a little bit more detail with it and some of our results from the Illinois Youth Survey from last year.
Is this working? Okay. Always bad with technology. Thank you. Hi, Maggie Harmson. I'm a social worker over at the high school, and I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to come and share with you the Illinois Youth Survey. The entire survey is in your board packets along with a lengthy narrative summary. So I'm here just to show you, as you can see, there's like a wealth of information to know. I'm here to share with you some of the highlights, hit on the trends we've seen, how and why we look at some of the data differently this year than we have in the past, and moving forward, some things are moving forward with the school and the community. A brief overview of what the Illinois Youth Survey is it's a survey that provides important information to participating schools and districts in Illinois. As you can see, a lot of the focus is on alcohol. However, there are other things that you can look into. For us, we have used the Illinois Youth Survey to provide us with opportunities to develop priorities. It's measured impacts of efforts, and it's helped us gauge our risk areas. In 2006, when we started the survey, the focus was strictly on alcohol. However, now, moving forward with some of the recent events that have happened, we're trying to dig more into the why. So we're looking at a more holistic student, not just focusing on the alcohol. This year in 2012, in the spring, we actually have the most representative sample we've ever had. It's grades 6 through 12. In the high school, that was 1,413 students. As you can see, in 2006, we just started out with 10th and 12th grade. 2008, we added the 6th and 8th grade. 2010, we added 6 and 8, 9 through 12, and now, happy to report, in the spring of 2012, we've administered everyone from 6th grade through 12th grade. This is non-use data. So these are the percentages are non-use. So we are in the white and the county is in the black. So as you can see, there's an 8% difference between us and the county in 10th grade. Not much of a difference. We're on, with cigarettes, marijuana, and inhalants, we're pretty much on target, and there's a little discrepancy between us and the county in 10th grade. We do have 9th grade data. We don't have it comparable to the county because a lot of the county do not do the 9th and 11th grade. We are able to, with the help of LEAD, be able to do that. So in our 12th grade is where the gap widens, and there's 18% difference between binge drinking in the county and a 14% difference in the alcohol. The binge drinking, just to clarify, is 5 or more drinks in one sitting over a 2-week period. The alcohol could just be 1 sip of a glass of wine or a beer. So that's the difference between the binge drinking and the alcohol. And the binge drinking, and that number is the number that we are concerned about and want to look into more. This is an actual question straight from the survey, the extent of alcohol use, and this question and numbers are from everyone from 6th through 12th grade. So of the students that had reported drinking, most of them, during 1 to 2 occasions, that's most, it was 333. However, then our next category, which we are trying to focus on, is the 20 to 39 occasions, and that was 217. So 21% of the students reported very heavy use. So I talked a little bit. So in years past, we used to use a comparative analysis, and that is when you compare the 8th grade in 2010 to the 8th grade in 2012. And obviously, in doing that, you're comparing data with different groups of kids. So in talking to experts over the summer, we have moved more towards a cohort analysis. In a cohort analysis, you follow the 8th graders in 2008, 10th graders in 2012. This will help us dive deeper and gain a better understanding of the students as they move through the years. This is an important slide because a lot of times you hear, oh, the drinking in Lake Forest is so bad and every year it gets worse. Well, in actuality, it doesn't. The pattern of alcohol use is fairly similar for all cohorts of students among all the years, so 2010, 12, and class of 2014. So although, yes, we still do have some work to do when we are focusing on the problem, there hasn't been a lot of change since 2010. One thing that we're looking at when we've done some cross-analysis of the data and the information is the rules and expectations of the parents. And 73% reported that their family has clear rules about alcohol and drug use. 69% reported that their parents have talked to them about alcohol. and 34% believe that their parents would find that their alcohol use not to be wrong. Usually in instances where you have such high parent involvement in discussion and rules, you usually see a decrease in the use. However, for us, that is not the case. So we're digging again into the why is that happening. If this is true, then why aren't we seeing the lower numbers? Another thing that is a test to our teachers and faculty and administration at the high school is that usually, again, when you have use numbers as high as ours, you usually see the connectedness of the school and expectations to be low, and however, that is exactly the opposite. So it's showing that our students, that they do feel safe, they do feel secure, they do value their teachers' opinions, and that we're not only educating them academically, but also emotionally, and that's kind of what we're trying to focus on, is that they go hand in hand, academic, emotional, wellness, and well-being. So with that, we're to move forward. We have decided to create an E-team. And the E-team will be, the focus will be a resource for all the wellness initiatives, everything from that a club, SAD, does to SALT, to getting to know the emotional wellness initiative more. We like it to be cross-departmental, so communication, to open up communication, so if teachers have ideas, we can all share them among each other. And it's also an open forum for everyone if they want to get involved. In the past, I've came and shared with you about our social norms campaign, and now we see that, perception is accurate. So the data is showing that the perception is accurate. However, it didn't change our behavior. So we have to have a little shift in that now. And our shift is going to be to focus more on the emotional and wellness health. We know that our kids value their emotional well-being. They care about how they feel and how they, and they also care about what their friends think. So we're going to try to maybe shift that way and focus while we're digging more into our research and more into the data. We as a school are not doing this alone, and with community partners working to help us support our parents and our students, we're lucky to have this help as well as we dive through the information. So, is there questions? A question? Oops, sorry. And, Cornelius, I don't know what to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments on the report? It's a lot to digest.
Yeah, it's a lot of information, so I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
And in follow-up, thank you.
Good evening, board members. If we could finish up our emotional wellness report, I'd like to just give you a quick update on the Community Wellness Task Force. You've been kept apprised of that all along, so I'm not going to go back and give you a lot of historical data on it today, but just to remind you that on June 7th, we had a community-wide mental health resource assessment with a professor from Johns Hopkins who came in and also worked with Dr. Mark Reinecke from Northwestern to bring us together to look at what our resources are and some of those partners that Maggie just referred to. We got our task force back together then on September 14th to look at actual recommendations that Dr. Reinecke, who is serving as the task force consultant, wanted to bring forth. And I can't, every time I get up here, I'd like to make sure that everyone knows that Northwestern Lake Forest Hospital is responsible for having us have this resource and the services of Dr. Reinecke, and that's no small contribution that they're making. And he is a fantastic expert, a national expert in youth suicide and depression, so he's been quite helpful. But what Dr. Reinecke has done with looking at the resources that we had available, he thought it'd be best if we focus our efforts right now on the group of students where we have the most immediate concerns, so the students who are actually in crisis, and then kind of work backwards in our efforts to lastly look at the general population and what we might do for them. So that's how the recommendations have come forward. He also looked at the recommendations across the various partners and entities. So he didn't make them very general, but he said specifically, hospital, you can do this, schools, you can do this, parents, you can do that, and that type of thing. If I were to start with Lake Forest High School, and clearly we've been working on our efforts ever since we started having these tragedies, and actually before, but we have expanded them partly because of Dr. Reinecke's suggestions. One of the things is we want to make yearly reminders of what our efforts are and what our concerns are. And I think one of the things that happened was we had about 50 students and teachers walk to participate in the Walk Out of Darkness, which was the last weekend in September. So we had a really nice showing on that event. We're also expanding the number of teachers and faculty that we have that are trained in the Adolescent and Depression Awareness Program, which is called ADAP out of Johns Hopkins University. So we're actually we had a couple people trained, but now we're going to train all of our health teachers and all of our social workers, and some of our deans are going to be trained in that at the end of October. We also are asking all of our faculty to renew a signs and symptoms of depression training. It's an online training, but we're asking 100% of them to participate in that during this year. As well as we're going to develop even a higher level response team that is going to get some specific training from Dr. Nicki. So all of those are new things to the high school's efforts. Going to some of what the hospital has been working on, in addition to providing Dr. Nicki's support, they've mobilized their pediatricians that work through the hospital, and all the pediatricians are considering, and some are already using screeners now on all the annual health physicals that come through their offices, and so we're really appreciative of that. They're also looking at people who come in through the emergency room and are expanding their protocols and trying to expand that, not just from the adults, which they typically, I guess, already screen for depression or suicide, down to the adolescent group. They're also actively seeking partnerships with a number of mental health entities to expand the services that are available here in our communities. Croya, again, very active in looking at the recommendations from Dr. Nicki, and we heard from the community last year that they thought there would be value in reestablishing a student training that was called peer training in the past. It's being called peer training now, and I actually checked with John, and apparently there are about 60 students that have already started this peer training, and it's a revamped program, and it specifically has some elements in it now of understanding if you have a friend and how you might communicate and talk to them and work through some of those things. Croy has also recently obtained a grant that can provide some free family counseling for families that are in need, so we're trying to break down any barriers that might exist for any families to get help. Also, they're training all their adult volunteers now in sign of symptoms, anyone that's working at their retreats, again, a very positive step. LEAD has done also kind of changing their efforts, and all of these things are of a mind to help align all of our efforts rather than being so separate in terms of our approaches. So one of the things that LEAD did was to create a clinical advisory board of mental health professionals. So they have a board that kind of guides their actions, but now they have a separate board that says, are these actions in line with what we hope to provide for mental health generally for the youth in our communities? They've also added a panic link to their website that actually directs individuals who might use it to local resources in the community. So that's something that we haven't had in the past. And actually tonight, Dr. Meg Meeker is speaking. She's a recognized pediatrician who's speaking to families, and hopefully they're getting a good turnout with that program tonight. Our parent board, our parent APTs in Lake Bluff and in Lake Forest are trying to contribute by having their focus be on healthy communities. So they too are of a mind if they have a presentation, if they want to bring information forth, to have it kind of be coordinated with these types of things as well. Just a couple more. The Lake Forest and Lake Bluff police departments, along with the hospital, initiated a communication crisis hub so that some of the if there are tragedies, and not just the tragedies of this nature, but any tragedies, the leaders across all of our organizations would be better informed and more quickly informed, which we had recognized was a problem in the past. Lake Forest College, a big partner in the initiative as well. They've taken the responsibility for assembling some of the mental health providers that are not through the hospital, so some of the private providers, and they're going to share with them some of the screening tools that Dr. Reineke is recommending, some of the protocols for treatment as well, to see if we can have a little more coordinated effort through all of the providers, which I know our school personnel will appreciate that, because they get, varying, they're not always sure what these private providers are going to do when we might refer some of our young people. Also, there is a possibility of a collaboration of a possible research and or treatment that Northwestern might partner up with Lake Forest College. So I'll share more information on that in the future, but right now they're exploring that. So a lot of work has been done, I think, through the efforts of the community, as both Jen and Maggie have mentioned. Any questions?
I have a question. a parent or a family may not pay attention to all of this if they feel it doesn't pertain to them. You know, you hear it and it goes in one ear and out the other until that day when it does become a part of your life. How will you educate the general population, even those people who think this is outside of their realm of possibility, because of that day that it could enter into their life, and to know where to go and to have that information at their fingertips? What's my next step? I just realized I'm one of those, that type of thing.
Right. And that is the most difficult thing, I think, with any issue that you're dealing with is speaking to the right people, because we do find that we can fill the room with concerned and parents who actually don't necessarily need that information that we were hoping to provide. The thing that the task force is looking at are the ways we communicate, even the updates for the task force, so trying to make sure that they're in multiple locations across all of our organizations. Making sure that our parent groups understand so they can spread that information. I mean, we tried to do that last year with some of the information that Ann Whipple was responsible for providing, just to say, always let people know there are things there. We don't want it to be at the moment of crisis. We don't want to, I'll give an example. This is an elementary example of some students using the airsoft guns and the danger behind those. Well, it's kind of difficult at that point in time to say, oh, families, here's this great information, after you've just had some youngsters get disciplinary action over a problem. So we want to have these things up and running so that we can always point people. So LEAD is being really instrumental in making sure they have a catalog of things, as well as through our school's website. So we hope those things will make a difference.
Thank you. You've done a tremendous amount of work getting involved in this and getting things going. I mean, I'm going back to the quote from earlier, falling together during a crisis rather than falling apart. And I've just seen that happening over and over again with all of you. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I appreciate the kind words, but I think about my supporting the work that's gone on here in the district. The fact of the matter is, I feel extraordinarily fortunate to come to a place that places such emphasis on students' emotional wellness. I've never seen anything like this, frankly, in my career. And it's little things. Mrs. Harmson standing outside and greeting students as they hop out of cars, sometimes half dressed and half awake. Yeah, no, the kids, they're coming in the building, sorry. And Mr. Marr and his really keen understanding of people, I've seen that over and over again. The cooperation of various groups, whether it's emotional wellness as an umbrella, or more specifically a student-driven topic of the goals that they have in the mission statement. And the key there is that the students are participating in something that is very meaningful to them and to other students, and that's a credit to them, but it's a credit to the adults who make it possible to give them a voice in something that they find meaningful, and that's what does not always happen. And it's very credible and very important work that you're doing, and thank you.
I think that was a really important point, that our students, partly through the Emotional Wellness Initiative, have learned to demand a lot from us. They've learned that it's right for them to have a voice and to ask us questions and to demand that the adults in the school environment with them help them understand when things happen in the community. So that is difficult, and it puts a great burden and a challenge on the teachers and everybody else around them, but in the long run, it's a really healthy thing for the students and their families and the whole community. So, sometimes there'll be rough spots, but in the long run, it's a better thing that they're asking those questions and demanding to know and understand than if people just didn't talk about it. So, thanks for everything.
Thank you, all of you. Any other questions or comments from board members? All right. That concludes the reports and discussion segment. Moving on, we have public participation. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the board?
Would it be possible to defer public participation until after the actual items?
I don't care. Board members don't mind, so that'll be fine. Board committees, I don't believe the Board Education Committee met, is that correct?
We did not meet. We have a meeting tentatively scheduled for November 7th, but I think we need to hear from the administration about that.
Thank you, Nicki. I know there was a lot going on. There was a meeting of the now combined Board Finance and Operations Committee. Jim, do you want to report on that?
Sure. The combined committee met for the first time on October 3rd. It's worthwhile to mention that because this is a combined committee, we have 4 community members who participate and provide us with a kind of an outside perspective on things. Steve Reimer and Susan Rowan have come over from the Operations Committee. Will Toms and Kevin Burns are holdovers from the Finance Committee, but we really value the input of these 4 individuals because they provide us with a fresh perspective in terms of some of the things we as board members and administrators have been talking about and are a good sounding board. The probably 4 or 5 things worth mentioning quickly. One is that Alan gave us an update in terms of the results of our fiscal year ended June 30th, 2012. After a few years of deficits, we ended the year in the black. Some of that was based on some additional recovery of prior year expenses incurred for special ed, and we also had some tremendous benefits due to the good weather last year, such as reduced snow plowing and energy costs. So our efforts to continue our path to black were successful last year, and again, we ended up in the black. Alan then updated us as to where we stood relative to the fiscal 2013 budget, which was approved at our last meeting. Again, it's a balanced budget, and that was based on us negotiating a contract with the teachers union that reflected the current economic environment and challenges we're all facing. The third item, and the one that really got more attention, was capital planning. Over the last several years, of necessity, we have deferred as many projects as we could to try to marshal our resources. That doesn't mean the work goes away, it just gets delayed. And between Carol White and Jennifer Hermes and Alan, we've started the dialogue in terms of a comprehensive 5-year building improvement plan, as well as the financing for that. That will be an ongoing project, but we've got the dialogue going. And again, it's probably the type of thing that we need to be doing because we have deferred a number of projects. The fourth item relates to an action item we've got coming up later on disposition of what I'll call surplus and very much used equipment. This is a small item, but we needed to implement a policy to put that in place so the administrators could unload some of this stuff rather than having it clog up our storage. The final point was an update on the Finance and the Operations Committee's goals for last year, as well as discussing the goals for the current year. Again, I think we did a good job last year of achieving the goals that have been set, and we'll be discussing more with the remainder of the board the goals for the current year. We don't have a date for our next meeting, but we would expect that we will be on a quarterly schedule going forward. Dick or John, anything? Thank you.
Nothing to add? Okay. All right, thank you very much, Jim. There are no liaison reports, so moving on, we have our action items. The first is the approval of the LFEA contract. And for that, John Scribner, one of the members of our negotiating team, will begin the presentation.
Before I begin to outline the proposed agreement, I want to echo what Superintendent Simic said about the tireless work of the administrators and the support staff during the very difficult negotiations during the strike. I also want to thank my fellow board members who brought very different points of view, very intelligently held points of view, and very sincerely held points of view together to the negotiation. And out of that coalescence of points of view came an agreement. And that didn't come easily, and it didn't come shortly. It was a very long period of time and a very hard period of time, and I'm proud to have been a part of that group. Now on to the agreement. The agreement which your negotiating committee is recommending to you this evening is a 4-year agreement, and that agreement will give our new superintendent an opportunity to focus all of his efforts toward our district goals without the added burden of labor negotiations. It'll also give him a time to rebuild the bridges between our administrators, our teachers, our students, our parents, and our community that were so challenged during the difficult negotiations. The new agreement is also consistent with our Path to Black program that Jim spoke of a moment ago, in that the program that seeks to rebuild our reserves that were affected by the deficits of the recession, to rebuild them to a board-mandated 10% of annual operating expenses. By the end of this contract, our forecast is that we will achieve that goal. And finally, the new agreement maintains our teachers' compensation levels at levels that are competitive with their peers in the highest performing high schools in the state, and presents a compensation package that remains very competitive to attracting and retaining the best and brightest new teachers. On to the details, salaries and benefits. As you know, increases in salaries are based upon the following formula. It's STEP, which is a tenure-based progression, LANE, which is an education-based progression, plus an increase in the base that is CPI-related. That CPI adjustment will now be linked to the funding for our primary source of revenue, and that is property taxes, so that the CPI increases in teacher compensation will be linked to the same CPI rate that is used to measure revenues for the relevant school year. That CPI adjustment will be CPI minus 1.75%. And the CPI number itself is capped at 5.25%. So we can see from the chart that's on the board what this all ends up meaning. In the last and final best offers that we proposed, that we published, and that went to the Labor Relations Board during our negotiations, the board proposed a 2.6% increase, and that's a 2.6% increase across that's counting all the base, the STEP, the LANE, and the CPI base. That is the accumulation of all of those increases. It's a 2.6% increase that was proposed. The LFEA proposed a 5.6%, and our final settlement is a 2.7% increase. In the second year of the contract, fiscal 2014, we proposed 3.4%, the LFEA 6.5%, and the final settlement is 3.8%. Now, those numbers are known because the CPI for those two periods is known. It's a published fact. The CPI for fiscal 2015 is not. That will be determined or will be announced by the Bureau of Labor Statistics in January of 2013. As of right now, that number, it's September, I think it was 1.7? Yeah, 1.7. Okay. If we assume that that holds, all right, the increase that was proposed by the board was 2.4, the LFEA 4.7, and the final settlement will be 2.4. If the CPI goes up in our original Labor Relations Board proposal, we used a 2.9% number, then our proposal then was 3.4, the LFEA 5.6, and the final settlement would call for a 3.6% increase. Fiscal 2016, we don't know the number. Of course, I would be speculating on what the CPI is. However, if we looked, Alan, do you have the... There's another slide. Yep, there we go. But just to give you an indication, what you see there is a schedule that tells you the CPI on the far left, I can't even read it. Okay, thank you. The base increase, the estimated STEP, And the estimated step is a cumulative number. It depends on where teachers are in their tenure status, but it is not a guess. It is a calculated number based on where our teachers are in the various lanes and step position. So the estimated step in that year, in fiscal 2016, or the fourth year of the contract, is 2.4%. So that if you had a CPI increase of, let's pick a number, let's say it was 3%, we'd have a total increase of 3.69%. If we had a CPI of 4%, you'd have a total increase of 4.69%. So what you're seeing is protection for the district on the low side of CPI. We're concerned that if we have a low CPI, that we'll have a large increase in teacher compensation that would not be matched with revenue increases. Plus, we're giving, on the high side of CPI, we're giving the teachers protection, because they're the ones that are going to be suffering the most from inflationary increases. So we think this was a proper negotiation that left us with some protection on the low side and left the teachers with some protection on the high side. Further, there will be a one-time payment of $250 to be made this year, of $250 per teacher. That will be put into a fund, and that money will then be dispersed to the teachers who are most affected by the fact that they are stepped out. They're down at the bottom end of the step. In other words, these teachers that have 20-year plus tenure and who would not be receiving any increases other than a base increase. And in this particular year, there would not be a base increase because the CPI number was less than was 1.5%, which is less than the 1.75% reduction of CPI. So that fund, which was, I think, cost to the districts about $30,000, will be used to compensate those teachers who are at the bottom of the step schedule. On to, we had a change in longevity pay for teachers, and that's a relatively small effect. That's about 0.4%, again for teachers who are on the bottom end of the, who are past the step. Plus, we are forming a committee with members equally appointed by, equal number of members appointed by the Board of Education and the LFEA, with the goal toward recommending a new salary schedule consistent with the recent state pension reform legislation. The recommendation will take the form of a report to be utilized during the negotiations for the next collective bargaining agreement. Finally, we have the changes in health insurance. And essentially, we now have the teachers contributing to almost all of the health insurance programs that they participate in. There are a couple of programs that still do not call for any teacher contribution, but they are very high deductible, low-cost programs to the district, and we don't have very high participation. Ellen, maybe less than a handful. Retirement. Teachers, a change that was requested by the teachers and was negotiated by the board was that the teachers will have the ability to request a withdrawal of their retirement under limited circumstances. Under the old agreement, teachers would announce that they are retiring. They could receive early, and they would receive a benefit, okay, by doing an early retirement. They can now rescind that election. They'll have to repay the benefit, of course, that they received, and it is subject to the board's discretion. The circumstances under which they can do it are fairly limited. Also, they call for death or disability or terminal illness of a dependent. And last but not least, as to the strike settlement, the agreement is retroactive to the beginning of the contract year, which is July 1st. The teachers will not be paid for the 5 days that they were on strike. They will have an opportunity to work 5 additional days during the school year. And 5 new instructional days have been added to the district calendar in November, January, April, and June to fulfill the state requirements for our students in attendance. Finally, the unfair labor practice charges filed by both parties during the strike and bargaining process have been withdrawn. Jay, I think you were going to talk about the work rule changes.
I think the biggest work rule change was the new evaluation system that's been called for by the changes in legislation by Illinois and the para laws. In Senate Bill 7, it really strengthens the evaluation process. Over the last year, we worked with our LFEA very closely to get an evaluation document that met the law and was great for both a formative document to allow us to really make sure that we do get the best teachers in our building and make them better along the way. And so that is one of the biggest changes, was the acceptance of that 4-tiered system and the ability to use the Danielson or the state model depending on the process. The other big change was our professional development, our KTIs, our Kessler Teaching Institute, which gives our teachers the ability to do some coursework and some professional development, was slightly enhanced, and we felt that the work rule changes were a very good process. We were finished with them by June, and left then with just the money that was kind of laying on the table. So we're happy with the agreement from all work rule changes, and I think it's a great place for our teachers to work.
Thank you, Mr. Scribner and Mr. Hoffman. Board members, I would like to ask for a motion at this time.
I move that the Lake Forest High School District 115 Board of Education approve the July 1st, 2012 through July 1st, 2016 LFEA Collective Bargaining Agreement and Evaluation Plan consistent with the agreement in principle between the parties dated September 19th, 2012, which terminated the strike.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from board members?
At the risk of belaboring this, for the last couple of years we have talked about getting on a path to black. And part and parcel of that was getting a contract with our teachers that reflected the value they provide to our students, to our taxpayers, enable us to attract and retain the excellent teachers we need, but also reflect current economic conditions. We planned for this negotiation process with that clearly in mind, with clear-cut parameters defined and approved by the board beforehand and executed for the last 6 months. The bottom line is that we are no longer operating in a 6% world in terms of the compensation for our teachers. We're in a much lower economic environment in terms of where the CPI is relative to driving our revenue growth. We needed to be down towards where CPI is, not a 6% level when you add step and base and lane change into it. We achieved that. So I think as we look back in terms of what we were shooting for and how we got there, I think we can all take a lot of comfort in the outcome of what was an arduous process, but we can be quite proud of the results that we achieved because, again, with this, we are still able, as Jay said, to attract and retain the caliber of teachers that we need and also give the taxpayers a fair shake because ultimately it's our money. So again, I just put a little bit of a capstone on the effort that took place over the last 6 months.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? All right. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mrs. Snoblin?
Aye.
Mr. Edson? Aye. Mr. Carey?
Aye.
Mr. Burgener?
Aye.
Mr. Scribner?
Aye.
Mrs. Golan?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, team. Next, we have the approval of the amended 2012-2013 calendar. Mr. Hoffman, I believe.
We did miss 5 days in September, all regular class days. And so the amended calendar, which will be sent out to everyone, I think Ann is going to send it out tomorrow morning, which has we've talked back and forth with the LFEA now that it's passed and ratified. The first 2 days that will be differently scheduled are November 8th and 9th, Thursday and Friday. Originally scheduled, November 8th was a parent-teacher conference day, and Friday, the day after, was a free day, basically Veterans Day holiday. We will be in school on both of those days, and parent-teacher conferences will be canceled. We will, however, have open house, which will be November 13th. And so that'll be a chance. It's Tuesday night, late start. November 14th is a Wednesday afterwards. But being in school the 8th and 9th will give us 2 pretty strong days in the middle of November, which is really good for our kids to not get lumped on or added on or moved around. The second change will be on January 18th. It's a Friday. It was going to be a teacher-only day. That will, in essence, be the last day of finals for first semester. So finals will be the 16th, 17th, and 18th, the Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of January. That gives us 3 days added total to the first semester. We do understand that some parents had travel requests for those days, as those are good holidays, 4-day weekends and things in November for our seniors to visit colleges. And our teachers do understand that there will be some kids who will still be going on those trips, and we understand that. But the best we can to get everyone in our classes and get them caught up to speed. The second semester then brings 2 more days that will be added. The first is April the 12th, which was a scheduled institute day for our teachers only. That will be a regular school day for all of our students. And then we'll do a similar thing in June with the finals. Instead of the finals being June 3rd, 4th, and 5th, they'll be June 4th, 5th, and 6th. That happens to be a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So Thursday would be June 6th, the last final and the last day of our school. Thus 5 student days added. That leaves us 4 days short on the state calendar. All 4 of those days are teacher-related days, institute days, work days, things like that, which then will be added to the schedule for teachers only. Students will be done on June 7th, Friday. June 8th will be graduation. And then June 10th, 11th, and 12th will be teacher-only days. So the school year was extended by 4 days, teacher-only days. This will be on our website, kind of a great explanation of the finals and what subjects are on what days and things like that. And we hope to get that out early tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Is there a motion to approve the amended 2012-2013 calendar?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the approval of the asset disposal second reading. Did we have our first reading last time, or did we table the whole thing? In which case tonight it was tabled. So we'll have our presentation, and we can vote to pass on waive first reading and go on to second. So, is this you, Ellen? No. Ellen.
Thank you, board members. This is a little bit of a repeat from last session, but we did make a few tweaks to our recommended policy change as recommended by Mr. Block. As kind of stated by Mr. Carey, we did review this in finance, the Joint Finance and Operations Committee. This basically allows administration to dispose of things that are surplus equipment and things that are no longer in use in our buildings without coming back to the board every single time with a laundry list. We've set that limit on things to set equal to or less than our capitalization threshold, which is currently $2,500. So something that's anticipated to be less than $2,500, we would dispose of through this process. In addition, we did lay out as part of this change how we would go about disposing that equipment. We would look first to sell that. Typically, we've been using online auctions, but we also could use things such as advertising in website, and you could do a sealed bid. So that option is still open. If we are unable to sell them, we would also then look to donate them to a like organization. So another non-for-profit, particularly organization. First, we would look to schools and then other non-for-profits. If we still couldn't get rid of the item, then we would look to dispose of them, just simply throw them away. And in worst case scenario, and I hope we wouldn't get to this, we would actually have to pay somebody to take it away. You might run into that a little bit on some of your electronics or some of those items. So far, we've been able to, in our first pilot run of this spring, actually get rid of everything that we were hoping to clear out of storage. This is important, not only for storage, but also just efficiency in keeping things clean and up to date and safe. So we recommend if you could waive the first reading, go to second reading, and I can finally get rid of some of the maps that Jen Knight has unearthed. So I'll take any questions if there are any.
Board members, questions or comments? All right, thank you very much. With that, may I have a motion to waive the first reading on this policy?
Second. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of waiving first reading?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the asset disposal, second reading of this policy?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we have the approval of the Human Resources Report. Ms. Knight?
Thank you. I wanted to take this opportunity to do something, sorry, I don't often do, and that's to actually talk about a line item on the Human Resources Report. One of our deans, Bill Donlin, had the opportunity to, apparently the emotional wellness report was just too much for me. Had the opportunity of a lifetime. You might not guess it is the opportunity to go work for his son. So he left us with a little bit of short notice this year, and we wanted to basically take a moment and recognize him. Thank you, Mr. Mike Simic. After 17 years, he had truly become a persona in our building. He perhaps was the most featured actor of all time in our telecom productions, and that is truly the evidence that you are loved by our student body. He also was the much heralded owner of the study hall and would welcome new students, old students, and students that were very happy to be there to study hall every year. They cherished the moment in which he talked about study halls, rules, and regulations. You don't believe me, but they did. So I just wanted to take an opportunity. He will be missed, but he is most excited by his new opportunity and hopefully will be treated well by his new boss. I don't know, though. It is his son. They will be coaching together at college, and it will be wonderful, I would imagine, for them both. The one other piece of it, though, I want to mention is that although his leaving was impromptu, by which I mean 6 days' notice, he was sent off in a heartwarming fashion that really originated with our students. We did, as an adult population, come up with some opportunities to kind of recognize him and give him a good send-off. But the variety, the emotion, and the warmth of our student send-off really cannot be paralleled. He spent the entire day with a smile on his face, and a well-deserved one. We have filled the opening with Michaeline Tomek, whom you saw earlier this evening. She will be filling out her athletic director position with a half-dean position as well. We thought that was a very cost-effective and very productive move that would best serve our student population and keep the smoothest transition. She was already in an administrative role. So that will be for the remainder of this school year. I also wanted to, just as a pickup from both our emotional wellness presentation and Maggie Harmson's reference to an E-team, mention one other activity that will be coming up actually a week from tomorrow. On the 17th, Wednesday the 17th, we have a later start to the traditional school day because our sophomores and juniors will be engaged in testing, standardized testing. That does leave both of our freshmen and our senior classes with open times on their schedule. So we have, due to really student demand, revived something that we had originated at our students' interest a couple years ago with emotional wellness, and that is the emotional wellness awareness sessions. And this is, in essence, an opportunity for our upperclassmen to engage our freshmen in conversation for about an hour and a half about what it means to be a student in this school and in this school community. It is something which has evolved over time, really with the leadership of our students. It is 95% student run. There's a little adult helping hand, but that's mainly making sure that they have the paper in the right place. And we are proud to bring it back and excited that our freshmen will have this opportunity. So those are a couple pieces. They seem to tie with our theme of the night. And thank you for this opportunity. And thank you for the water, perhaps more importantly.
Thank you, Jen. Are there any questions or comments, board members?
Mr. Donlan's deadpan delivery in the telecom videos will never be matched, so he'll be sorely missed.
He will.
And I think since the board was not able to send him off, maybe we can do it right now with a round of applause. So here's to Mr. Donlan. Okay, and with that, is there a motion to approve the Human Resources Report?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Carey?
Aye.
Mrs. Snoblin?
Aye.
Mr. Edson?
Aye.
Mr. Burgener?
Aye.
Mr. Block?
Aye.
Mr. Scribner?
Aye.
Mrs. Golan?
Aye. Motion carries. At this point, we can have public participation if there's anyone in the audience that wants to speak to the board. Would you like to go up to, please go up to the podium and just state your name and address? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tony Chris, 671 Newcastle Drive here in Lake Forest. What's the procedure going forward? Do the teachers have to vote or ratify on this procedure going forward, or is it a done deal at this point?
I realize that I neglected to mention that the teachers did meet and ratified the contract this afternoon, and so now with our vote, it is done.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? All right. Moving on, we have our consent agenda. That is the approval of minutes of a regular meeting from September 11th, 2012, minutes of executive meetings from September 11th, 2012, minutes of a budget hearing from that same evening, the approval of September financial report, the approval of recognition of school application, and the disposal of audio recordings from March 8th, 2011 and April 12th, 2011. Is there any item that a board member would like to remove from the consent agenda to vote on separately? Since there isn't any, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. May I have a roll call vote?
Mr. Scribner?
Aye.
Mr. Edson? Mrs. Snoblin?
Aye.
Mr. Carey?
Aye.
Mr. Burgener?
Aye.
Mr. Block?
Aye.
Mrs. Golan?
Aye. Motion carries. There were several FOIA requests, the first from Paul Kersey of the Illinois Policy Institute, the second from Donald Russ, 1008 Foster Avenue, Lake Bluff, the third from Donald Russ, 1008 Foster Avenue, Lake Bluff, the fourth from Nancy Thorner, 331 East Blodgett Avenue, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, all from Mrs. Thorner. And those were dealt with from our office. Announcements. Wednesday, October 17th is the PLAN PSAT test for sophomores and juniors. Wednesday, October 24th is a late start day. Classes begin at 9:50 a.m. Friday, October 26th is the end of the first quarter. And Tuesday, November 13th will be our next Board of Education meeting here at 7 p.m. With that, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.